Let's kick things off with the backbone of incident response for DoD contractors, DFARS 252.204-7012. I'll try not to sound like a legal textbook, but this clause is mission critical if you handle CUI. What it says, right, and I always come back to the text, is that if you even suspect a cyber incident affecting covered defense information, you've got 72 hours to notify DoD via the DIBnet portal. Not 3 business days, not when you get to it. 72 hours from discovery, period. The report's got to include what CUI or CDI you believe was affected, alongside evidence preservation and clear details, even if you don't have all the answers yet. Prime contractors have to flow this down to subs, so it's not just the big guys on the hook. Contractors also need a system to track, contain, and mitigate the incident while working with the DoD. And if they can't report in that window, well, you need a pretty airtight reason. It sounds straightforward, but I've seen even seasoned defense orgs get tangled up because they don't have a muscle memory here.
Yeah, Paul, and there's a reason for that intense focus on speed. DFARS 252.204-7012 didn't come out of nowhere. After a series of high-profile breaches about, a decade ago, policymakers realized the DoD didn't have real-time visibility into what was happening in the defense industrial base. So, the regulatory intent was to enforce immediate notification. Get the DoD into the loop before major damage spreads. Not just the primes, subcontractors too. Everybody in the supply chain is carrying part of that risk. For RAS, it's always about the policy logic. The faster you know, the faster you can contain the threat, coordinate with law enforcement, and limit exposure. The clause isn't meant to scare people. It's about partnership. Failing to report quickly isn't just a contract issue. It can also mean losing your eligibility to bid on future contracts. That's why clear plans and proactive training really matter.
I've definitely seen that play out, Roz. Like, just last year, I worked with this mid-sized contractor. Pretty sharp technical folks, but they'd never actually formalized their incident response process. When I asked for their documentation, they gave me a folder labeled security stuff, which, wasn't exactly what the DFARS clause has in mind. We ended up building their plan from scratch, talking through hypothetical incidents and rehearsing 72-hour notification. I'll admit, there was a lot of confusion about what even counts as a cyber incident. They've been thinking data theft or ransomware, obviously, but totally missed things like unauthorized access attempts or even unusual system behaviors that could impact CUI. So it's not just policy, it's about closing those practical gaps that so many out there still have. And yeah, if you're not documenting or gaming out these scenarios ahead of time, you're already behind the curve.
Right, Eric. So if DFARS is all about that phone home ASAP mindset, NIST SP800-171's requirement 3.6 is a total deep dive by comparison. In Aussie fashion, let's break it down a bit. It's not just detect and report. It's got expectations for prepping your team, detecting, analysing, containing, eradicating, and then recovering from incidents. Soup to nuts, honestly. There's a heavy emphasis on being organised way before anything happens, like formal IR policies, regular training, and those tabletop exercises we've mentioned before. Oh, and don't forget, you've got to document every incident with enough detail to show lessons learned. Not just for yourself, but to prove to an assessor you're actually getting better at this stuff,
Absolutely, Ruby. NIST 800-171 doesn't just care if you notify someone. It expects controls in place. Gather system logs, analyze them, escalate appropriately, and perform root cause analysis on anything you've categorized as a cyber incident. Documentation's not just a formality. Think postmortems, timelines, corrective actions, evidence collection. The whole point is a feedback loop for continuous improvement, so next time you respond better, or ideally, it doesn't happen again. One thing I'll say, for organizations coming from a compliance-focused mindset, the amount of ongoing, process-driven discipline NIST requires can be, well, let's say sobering.
Yeah, and here's where people get tripped up. DFARS is obsessed with fast reporting and collaboration. It's a regulatory hammer, if you will. But NIST? NIST's approach is process-driven, almost academic. Lay out each phase, show your work, improve over time. Contractors sometimes think doing one will cover the other, but the requirements are different. It's not enough to log reported incident in 72 hours. You need to demonstrate your entire detection and response lifecycle, complete with logs, response playbooks, and review sessions. If you miss that distinction, you're probably going to stumble in an assessment, or worse, during a real breach.
So let's connect the dots on this, right? Contractors have to interlace these frameworks. In practice, that means you record, and I mean rigorously, every incident per NIST. What happened? Who did what? Which systems? Timeline? Recovery actions. Then, if the incident affects covered defense information, or CUI, notify DoD within the 72-hour DFARS window. Also, you're preserving evidence, supporting DoD investigations as needed. If you skimp on either half, thorough NIST documentation or rapid DFARS notification, you're liable to fail both sides of compliance. And honestly, undermine response effectiveness. The end goal is a process that triggers both notification and internal improvement, with the documentation and evidence ready for any follow-up, internal audit, or DoD review.
And here's where the real-world wrinkles show up, right? I mean, sure, on paper, you just do both. But making NISTs, like highly technical IR steps, also produce the right admin output for DFARS reports? That's tricky, especially for small DoD suppliers without a million resources. I was reading this case about a parts manufacturer who ran a textbook incident analysis, super thorough internally, but fumbled the external report. The timelines, what needed to be included, totally mismatched. By the time they sorted it out, compliance was already in jeopardy. It's not just technical alignment, it's about process choreography, if that makes sense.
Yeah, that's spot on, Ruby. Actually, I ran this workshop not too long ago. Defense IT managers in a room, whiteboards everywhere. We mapped out both frameworks and, sure enough, even the experienced folks found process gaps. Like, they'd have great NIST-driven response logs, but missed a DFARS reporting step, or vice versa. What worked for us was building timeline checklists, step by step, so as incidents unfold, everyone knows who's triggering notifications, who's documenting, and when reviews need to happen. We even built playbooks with if-then prompts, so even under pressure, nothing slips through the cracks. It made the process less intimidating, honestly, and folks walked out more confident they could handle the next big incident without running afoul of compliance.
It's a great reminder that integrated compliance isn't about paperwork for paperwork's sake. It's about trust in the whole system. If incident response is solid and timely, everyone from the DoD to the frontline techs knows where they stand. We've seen in previous episodes, like our discussion about continuous compliance and risk assessments, how proactive systems make all the difference. So if you're out there struggling to marry up these frameworks, keep refining those playbooks and checklists. That's where the real wins are.
Right, and I think we'll see more questions crop up as folks dig into these crosswalks, especially with CEMMC enforcement picking up pace as we covered recently. But for now, thanks for joining us on CEMMC Unlocked. Paul, Ruby, Roz, always a pleasure. Let's keep this conversation going and help everyone get incident response truly interlaced. Cheers to all. See you next time.
Thanks for tuning in, everyone. Good on you, Eric, Paul, Roz. Can't wait for the next one. Stay cyber safe, folks.
Appreciate the insights today. Remember, stay proactive, keep your playbooks updated, and we'll see you on the next episode.
Thanks all. Keep those questions coming, and remember, compliance is a team sport. See you in the next episode.